Okay, welcome to Stuck in the Middle, Managing Family Dynamics. Please advance the slide. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Tami Anastasia. Tami is a dementia care expert, educator, and speaker. She's also the author of the acclaimed books Essential Strategies for the Dementia Caregiver, Learning to Pace Yourself, and Dementia Caregiving and Personal History, How to Help Cope, Connect, and Heal. Tami holds a Master of Arts in Counseling, a certificate in gerontology, and a certificate in end of life. She's also a certified senior advisor. For more than 30 years, Tami has provided counseling services, dementia guidance, emotional support, and care strategies to family and professional dementia caregivers. She also facilitates twice monthly support groups. As we get started, please put your questions into the chat if you have any, and Tami will take them at the end of the presentation. And with that, please join me in welcoming Tami.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sally. As Sally mentioned, my name is Tami Anastasia. Thank you all for joining us today. The purpose of my presentation today is to highlight the deeper issues that shape family dynamics and how to manage those dynamics if you are the primary caregiver. So I'm going to start my presentation by going over what the challenges are when we're dealing with family dynamics. So one of the first challenges is that we're dealing with long-standing family dynamics that tend to come to the surface when we're caring for a loved one living with dementia. So often in my private practice, clients will tell me about the family dynamics as though it's kind of like new and it's so frustrating when in reality, these family dynamics are deeply rooted from a very, very, very early age. Then also childhood roles influence the decision making and how we deal with conflict and how we care. And it also dictates how we support one another. And you're going to find differences in how we support and deal with conflict based on the childhood roles. And then I'll talk about those childhood roles as we go along. Care responsibilities often fall unevenly. It's very rare. I do have some families where it's especially if it's like two siblings who will support one another. But often, if there's more than two siblings, there will be a lot of uneven responsibilities. And typically, in most families, at least again in my private practice, most families, the responsibilities usually fall on one person. And then family members have different coping styles. So one family member may be MIA, missing in action. Another one may minimize, discount, oh, mom's not that bad, dad's not that bad. Another one might be very emotional. Another one may be very task oriented as a way of distracting themselves. So there are coping mechanisms, there's differences in the coping mechanisms that can also conflict and create a lot of conflict when dealing with family dynamics and caring for a loved one living with dementia. Also, there are conflicting expectations as to quote unquote what good care looks like. And sadly, often what I'll see is that good care is often dependent on, well, how much is the care going to cost? How much is that care going to take away possibly from what we get when mom or dad die? So there's sometimes a big discrepancy over what good care looks like, partly because the financial, and then partly because they are not the ones that are the hands-on and tend to discount or minimize what's happening, which can drive the primary caregiver absolutely bazonkers. Then also we have lack of support, conflict, or silence from others adds to the burden of caregiving, as if not caring for your loved one living with dementia isn't heavy enough. Then we add in the family dynamics, and oh boy, it really complicates and makes the care even more complex. And then also old wounds, unspoken expectations, and unresolved tension, unfortunately, often comes to the surface as well when we're caring for a loved one living with dementia. And then also disagreements again on how to spend money and the cost of care. And then support very often is not available from the people or the family you expect. So we have the whole dynamics of taking care of a loved one and dealing with the cognitive and the behavioral changes. And then you add this whole complexity of dealing with family dynamics. So hopefully, throughout this presentation, I hope to educate you to understand what fuels the family dynamics, why we do what we do, why other family members do what they do, and then how to manage and deal with those dynamics. So next, I want to talk about attachment styles because attachment styles influence the type of caregiver we are, and it also influences your siblings and how other family members may be. So attachment styles are learned at a very, very, very early age, and it's how we learn to manage relationships and build trust and give or receive help. And what tends to come to the surface is that the demands of caregiving trigger these learned patterns. So today I'm here just to educate you about what the four attachment styles are. And you'll see there's varying degrees, and you can fluctuate from one attachment style to another given whatever circumstances might be going on. But it's just good information to have that whatever family dynamics are going on within your family system has been deeply rooted and deeply ingrained since a very, 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 very early age. So we have what is called the secure attachment. So the secure attachment, if my parents were emotionally available, they were consistent, and they were very comforting, I learned to trust and feel safe consistently. And how that can carry over into caregiving is I'm very comfortable with being close to people. I'm very comfortable making connections with people. I'm able to set boundaries. I'm able to collaborate with other people, and I'm also able to ask for help, and I can stay grounded without feeling I have to be perfect. So, secure attachment is going to be a lot about maintaining connection and being able to adapt as things change without being super, super hard on themselves. But this can be conflictual if other family members don't operate this way. Then we have what's called the anxious attachment. So early in the relationship, and often I should say, how attachment gets developed is often dependent on how the care we received from our parents or whoever was mostly responsible for us as we were getting older, as we were kids. So if early in the relationship affection was inconsistent, that love and attention and approval felt unpredictable or unconditional, then in caregiving, I may overgive and I'm often seeking reassurance. I want external validation. I'm doing a good job. I may struggle to delegate because if I delegate, that might imply that maybe I'm weak or that I'm failing at what I should be able to do. And often will feel guilty taking breaks, taking time out, and then fears that they are not doing enough. So this is based on, again, any type of attachment where there was inconsistent affection. It's kind of this push-pull. When am I going to get it? When am I not going to get it? So it's really hard to trust myself as well as others. Then also we have what's called avoidant attachment. So early relationship, parents discouraged emotion. It was not safe to express your emotions. They offered little comfort, they offered little understanding, little validation, or they were emotionally distant or really overly critical. So in caregiving, what happens is then I focus on tasks over connection. I'm all about the task, what needs to get done, when it needs to get done. Very good at organizing, very good at following through with tasks, but I am really protective of whatever relationships that could be threatening. And then avoids emotional moments and may downplay challenges. But the worst thing about avoidant attachment is this deep, deep, deep responsibility of I have to handle everything alone. And then with the disorganized attachment, that's the fourth attachment style. Parents were both a source of comfort and fear. So often it was unpredictable, volatile, or unsafe. So in caregiving, what's going to happen is I'm going to swing between over-involvement and then withdraw. And then we call it the push-pull, right? I embrace and then I back off. And then feels torn between duty and self-protection and really struggles with regulating their emotions. So these attachment styles are just to bring to your attention how our upbringing, how we were raised can affect who we are as caregivers, but also can affect the family, other family members, and how they cope and how they deal with relationships and how they cope with conflict, and again, how they may or may not support you. So, understanding these patterns is really just to help you understand and be more compassionate and have more awareness, mainly with yourself, to be much more compassionate with yourself. I bring these attachment styles to your attention to give you more understanding and appreciation for why you may do what you do, to replace the criticism, replace the judgment you may have of yourself. But this is to help you understand why I like things done a certain way. So, in addition to attachment styles, we also have family roles. We all learn to be a certain way within our family dynamics, and that's going to vary from person to person. So, the most common family roles are the achiever. The achiever takes charge, strives to do it right, often feels pressure to be perfect, and may struggle to delegate. Then we have the scapegoat. In most families, there isn't a scapegoat, and often gets blamed or misunderstood, and may carry resentment or old wounds, and can feel invisible even while providing care. Then there is what we call the observer. And the observer stays on the sidelines. The observer just kind of watches what's happening, stays pretty quiet, avoids conflict, doesn't like conflict, and rarely will voice what their needs are, and often will not express how they feel on the inside. Then the comedian diffuses tension or anything that could feel emotionally heavy or threatening with humor. So humor will diffuse tension, they'll try to lighten things up, and they will avoid conversations or deeper emotions. And again, humor becomes a defense mechanism. And humor's great. I'm not saying anything wrong with humor. It's just know that some people will use humor as a defense mechanism, as a way of coping with things that may feel too heavy or may be too threatening. And then we have the nurturer. The nurturer usually naturally steps in with compassion and care, but they will often neglect their own needs and they'll take on way too much. So the nurturer has a tendency to self-sacrifice, and everybody else is made the priority and they're last on the priority list. And then we have the overgiver. And the overgiver feels responsible for everything, feels even to some degree responsible for being or trying to control even the dementia and the changes that are going on in the person with dementia. They may have trouble letting go of control, and they may equate caregiving with self-worth. So the overgiver is the name that I give for the overgiver, but the overgiver could also be considered the person that is very codependent. And so the care is a way of measuring their self-worth. And all of these, again, these are just family roles. These are not labels. These are not meant to pigeonhole anybody. It's just a way of understanding how all these dynamics can play out. And it's just not there's so many underbellies of why we do what we do. And we have to factor in how we were raised and how we learned to cope and how we learned to trust. So these are just ways to understand that when we're dealing with family dynamics, we're dealing with a lot of underlying issues as well. So these roles don't have to be fixed. You may fluctuate between them, and family members may fluctuate between them. And different family members may see you in a different light as well. So, these are the family roles and attachment styles that tend to be the underlying issues that will play out as we're caring for a loved one living with dementia, which is why there can be so many conflicts and so many dynamics. So, when you're the primary caregiver, your needs may go unnoticed. You're doing all the work, and they're constantly asking about how your loved one is doing, but they don't ask you how you're doing. And this, for the primary caregiver, is infuriating and exhausting. And I'm doing all the work, and I feel invisible. I don't feel acknowledged, and I don't feel recognized. And then siblings may stay silent, minimize, or criticize. Here again, in my private practice, I have many clients, and it really wears on the primary caregiver when they are doing the work and a sibling calls up and says, "Oh, I had a conversation with mom, and mom sounded great. I don't know what you're talking about, but she remembered everything we talked about in our discussion." Or you're dismissed, or the one that tells you how it should all be done, but they're rarely involved and they're telling you what you're doing wrong. So, the primary caregiver, this complicates the stress and the care because you're doing everything you can to support your loved one, and yet we have these family dynamics we also have to deal with. Then you also may be the target of old blame patterns. I'm the oldest of five, and I'm often told I'm too sensitive, and I'm too sensitive. So finally, I told my family, you're just going to have to accept that I'm too sensitive, and I'm still going to be who I am. But we can get accused of being too emotional, or we can be too controlling, or again, too sensitive. And I am who I am. And I'm going to respect who I am. I'm going to respect my family members, but I'm also going to protect myself. So if you are being accused of being too controlling or too emotional, that's okay. That's who you are, and we're going to protect you. And you still have a right to be you. And because they accuse you doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just that's how they're deflecting responsibility of their own behavior. And then you might feel stuck between caregiving and resentment. I can honestly say in my private practice, I spend a lot of time processing resentment because you're doing what feels right, whether you feel obligated to do it, whether it feels like it's a duty, whether you feel it's your responsibility, doesn't matter. You're doing what you feel is right, but the lack of support that you get can leave you feeling angry, exhausted, or alone. So I want to validate and normalize the feelings that the primary caregiver is going to have. These are the most common feelings that primary caregivers are going to experience. Feeling unappreciated or taken for granted. The emotional toll is often invisible. It takes a lot. I mean, for me, it's so easy to say thank you. It's so easy to acknowledge the work and the care that you're providing. But for many family members, they can't do that. And it can be for their own reasons, not because you're not being appreciated, but for whatever reason, whatever the dynamics are with them, it can be very difficult for them to express how appreciative they may be. Then we have disappointment. So disappointment starts off feeling kind of sad that, the other family members don't show up the way that you were hoping they would. And I'll see this more in the early stages of caregiving because, this is new and now we're trying to figure this out. The primary caregiver is doing a lot of the work. And so I might ask for help or support and I may not get it, but because it's pretty new, I might just feel disappointed. However, as dementia continues and your loved one tends to progress and the more work you're doing, that disappointment can soon turn into anger when caregiving feels unfair, imbalanced, or wrong. immediately it can become anger that I am doing all of this and it's completely unfair. I have three other siblings. I have four other siblings. I have one other sibling. Um, when we feel it is unfair, anger is likely to be the feeling that's going to come up. And then anger, after a while, builds up and then it turns into resentment. And anger builds up as the responsibility of caregiving falls mostly on you. And as things progress with dementia, the needs of the person that you're taking care of increases. And if we're still not getting the help and the support that you need, that anger becomes resentment. I'm doing all the work. I'm trying to manage a family. I'm trying to manage work, or maybe I'm not even working full time and maybe I don't have a family of my own, but I am doing all of the work and needs are increasing, and I am not getting the support and the help that I need from my family, triggers resentment. And resentment's a valid feeling. Anger is a valid feeling, and disappointment and feeling unappreciated are valid feelings. And then there is the guilt. And I think this saddens me the most because primary caregivers are working so hard to support their loved one living with dementia. And then you feel guilty for feeling tired, frustrated, or needing a break. Your needs matter too. Whether we get support from other family or not, your needs matter. You are just important as the person you're taking care of. And you have a right and you deserve to be able to take a break. You have a right and you deserve to be good to yourself and set boundaries and take care of yourself, as well as take care of a person living with dementia. And then sadness and grief come up quite a bit also in my private practice when I'm dealing with primary caregivers, because you're not only grieving the changes in your loved one, but you're also grieving the loss of the family you were hoping would step up to the plate. So it's a double whammy. So we're losing our loved one with dementia is fading, and then I have a family that I was hoping would step up to the plate, and they're not. So it intensifies the grief and it intensifies the sadness. And then also loneliness is a huge factor. Feeling like you're doing it all alone. That is going to get even more heightened if you have family members who could contribute and they don't. It's a different feeling. You know, I work with a lot of family caregivers who are an only child and they feel alone, but they feel alone in a different way than if a caregiver who has family and siblings, the aloneness feels very different. And then burnout, the constant demands without little relief. This is why I'm hoping that the strategies I share with you in this PowerPoint presentation will help inspire you to set and do things that will prevent you from burning out. It's a long journey, and it's really important to conserve your energy. It's really important to protect your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. And then feeling emotionally trapped or stuck, responsibilities feel heavy and options feel limited. And often we're going to have to provide the support may involve stepping outside of the family and creating support in a different way. So, one of the best things you can do when we're dealing with family dynamics is setting boundaries. And I will go on record saying setting boundaries is really hard. And setting boundaries, even for myself personally, can feel like I'm doing a bad thing. I'm doing something wrong. It goes against me, who I am as a person. I feel, gosh, I'm not being kind, I'm not being compassionate. But in the end, what I really am doing is there's one person who's going to take care of me, and that's going to be me. So I'm going to have to do things that are going to protect me emotionally, physically, mentally. And I'm just learning, and it's a process that I practice every single day, not to beat myself up because I have to set these boundaries. I'm not setting boundaries to be a bad person or to be mean. I'm setting boundaries so that I can continue to care for myself in the best way possible. So I get that setting boundaries is hard, and I get that keeping boundaries is even harder, but we'll talk more about that. So when we're setting boundaries, you want to clearly communicate what your limits are. What that's going to entail, though, is you need to know what your limits are. You need to give yourself permission to say, these are my limitations. I can help dad or mom, Aunt Susie, between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. But after 12 p.m., I'm not available. You want to know what your limitations are because those limitations are going to set the guidelines for what you can do and what you cannot do. And that too can fluctuate, but you're in control of what that looks like. Then also, let go of unrealistic expectations. I have a term, my private clients know, I call it fantasy family versus reality family. And I'll touch on that a little bit more towards the end. But fantasy family is the family we wish they were. Fantasy family is the way we wish our loved ones would be. Fantasy family is if only my sister would do A, B, and C. Reality family is the way they are, who they are, the way they are, how they have always been, and dealing with reality family and letting go of fantasy family. Then you also want to pay attention to your feelings. Many of my private caregivers, they will not use their feelings to their advantage and instead beat themselves up because they feel this way. And I want people to reverse the thinking. Your feelings help gauge how you're doing, and your feelings are what can allow you to set boundaries and also give you permission to do things differently. So when you're feeling a certain way, what are your feelings trying to tell you? What's causing you to feel this way? And then the next question is what boundaries do I need to set? So again, personally, when I feel resentment or I feel anger, I have to look at what am I doing that is allowing me to feel that way so that I can reset, I can refocus. I may need to do a shift in my thinking. Often it is shifting my expectations. And when I can shift my expectations, then I can take better care of myself. And I too can get caught up in fantasy versus reality. And I have to stay focused in reality, and I constantly have to check my expectations. And then give yourself permission to say no without justifying or over explaining. And again, I'm going to share personally, that's something I continue to work on as well. Again, being the oldest of five, my family messaging was I'm responsible for taking care of my siblings. And therefore, if anything happened, I had to justify or explain into great detail why did such and such happen? Why does such and such feel this way? And I am learning I don't have to over justify or over explain. These are the facts. This is what happened. I don't need to justify the way I feel. I don't need to justify why I did what I did. If you're the primary caregiver, you are on constantly and you are the one that knows the best because you're with them most often. So it's going to take a little practice not to over explain and not to justify, but you can just state the facts. And then delegate tasks when possible. Now, you can assign responsibilities to willing family members. There may be family members who are very much willing to support you, but you'll have to be specific in what it is that you need help with. When we leave it vague, when we leave it general, it leaves too much open space, and you will know what you need help with. And you could ask them, I need help with this, or I need help with that. But you have to be specific. When we're in the gray area, there's too much wiggle room. So if they're willing, we want to capitalize on what they like to do, what they're willing to do, but also know that you have to be specific about what it is that you do need. And I'll talk more about that next. Then also you want to protect your time and energy. Again, you are as important as the person you're taking care of. And there is a tendency to push our needs aside, and we don't know how long this journey is going to be. And so we have to make sure we factor in that you take a pause, you get a break, that you have time to meet your needs, whether they be mental or emotional or physical. Your personal needs are super, super important. And I think what trips people up the most in doing this is the amount of guilt we feel where I'm supposed to sacrifice my life. I'm supposed to sacrifice my needs to take care of you. And caregiving isn't about doing more. It's about not doing it alone. And it's about making sure that your needs too don't get ignored while you're taking care of a loved one living with dementia. And then you may need to maintain emotional distance when needed, limit engagement in criticism, blame, or conflict. You don't need to be subjected to constant blame, constant criticism, or conflict. If you need to create emotional distance, allow yourself to do that. And that can come in many different ways. You don't have to answer every phone call that your brother or sister may have. Maybe let it go into a voicemail. Maybe you don't want to be in contact on a daily basis. Maybe we keep updates by sending a text, or maybe we keep updates by sending an email. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly. In some cases, I see the emotional distance be somewhat a long period of time. So maintain emotional distance when needed. Protect your well-being. We don't need to add to the complexities of caring for a loved one with dementia. You don't need to be subjected to criticism. You don't need to be subjected to blame. That is for another time, but this is not the time that you need to be subjected to that. So really give yourself permission to maintain emotional distance if needed. And I think one of the most important things that I hope all primary caregivers get out of today's conversation is that to trust yourself. I know it's hard and you're put in a position of having to make some really difficult decisions, but know that you are doing what's best for you and your loved one. And if other family members don't get it, don't understand it, doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. If I had my druthers, I'd like to take a magic wand and hit that magic wand over every single family caregiver I work with, and just make it magical. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So you have to trust yourself more than anybody else because you're the hands-on person. And I apologize that other family members may not get it, but it doesn't dismiss that you are the one that's in the position of making the best decisions and to trust and believe in yourself. And that's one of the favorite things I love about my work is that I get to help family caregivers feel better, more confident, and to trust and believe in themselves. So let's talk about how to involve family if they're willing, because we do have some families where they're very willing, but they're not quite sure what to do. So offer, like I said earlier, short, specific requests. Can you schedule mom's next dental appointment this week? Or could you pick up some groceries? I can't get out, and I would love if you could pick up groceries. Or could you also maybe call the insurance company about mom's medical insurance? But it has to be very, very specific. And then also, you may want to ask open-ended questions about their hesitation. You know, sometimes we're willing, but you can hear the slight hesitation, the slight pause, like, I want to help, but please don't tell me you really need help, kind of thing. And here you might just want to say, I get the sense that maybe you're a little hesitant. Is there a part of the caregiving that feels difficult or you're uncomfortable with? And if you were willing to do something, what would you be comfortable doing? This becomes a sharing now. I don't dictate what I need done other than I'm going to feel you out a little bit. and see what you might be willing to do. And I'm going to capitalize on what you're willing to do. And then we also may need to give them chance to succeed in small, simple ways. So sometimes I will guide clients where what we're asking of their loved one is way too big. And I think, let's test. Let's test and see, can we get any consistency at all? And we ask them to do something very, very, very simple and something that's very, very, very small. And often we're finding out what would you be comfortable doing, and we keep it very small because if they can't meet a small, simple task, then they're not going to meet a bigger task that's going to require more work. So let's feel it out. Let's see if we can get any cooperation, any support at all by offering them to do something very simple and very small. And then we can also, it's really important that we do match the task to their comfort level. So there might be family members who are really uncomfortable with personal care. They don't want anything involved with that, but they're great about scheduling appointments. They're great about driving to appointments. They're great about handling insurance paperwork. They might be willing to handle the legal stuff, the medical forms, but really important that we really tap into what is their comfort level and see how we could utilize them. Even if it's just a little something is better than nothing, but we may have to figure out what that looks like and what that might be. So a lot of times with families, they may be asking of their loved ones, family siblings, and it's exceeding what they're willing to do. So we reverse the thinking and let's find out what they're willing to do. Let's find out what they might be comfortable with. And then when we do assign it, we keep it small to see if they can come through on a consistent basis. And once we get a little traction, we might increase what the task might be. We might change, we might add something. But first, we've got to establish a little traction. And then if it's fleeting, then we know it's fleeting. We're not going to make a care plan revolve around things that are fleeting. We'll take what we can get when we can get it, but we're going to change our care plan not to include family members who are going to be inconsistent or fleeting. Then we're going to talk about now strategies for how to deal with the emotionally distant family member. So keep conversations focused on facts. I know that when we're emotional, a lot of times family members can again accuse us of being too emotional or, just overreacting, and simply state the facts. No emotion, just simply state the facts. Dad is no longer safe to be home alone. He used the stove last night and he didn't turn it off. State the facts. Not, oh my gosh, because they'll use all that emotion against you. You have a right to feel worried. You have a right to emote, but they may not be a safe place to emote. So we'll emote and find other places to be able to express our emotions. But when we're dealing with emotionally distant family members, state the facts. Then share clear and brief updates and try not to over explain. For example, at today's doctor visit, mom's confusion was noticeably worse. I don't need to go into more detail. You don't need to justify your observations. You don't have to defend your tone. As a matter of fact, the more we get caught up in justifying, the more we start to defend our tone, the more we over explain, by George, they're going to take some of what we said, twist it, turn it around, and somehow it gets used against us. So it's just easier to state the facts. And if they want to ask questions, they can ask questions, but you state the facts. And then don't try not to, I should say, waste your energy trying to change their behavior. I forget, I think it was Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Your siblings, your family is who they are. It's how they learn to protect themselves. It's how they learn to be. And so if they want to change, they will. If there's a way of changing, they will. but try not to keep beating your head against the wall of trying and hoping and wishing they're going to change because it's depleting your energy. And all your energy has to go into us providing the best care plan for your loved one and the best care plan and support for you. So if they keep saying, let me know if you need anything, and they don't come through, then we're just going to say thanks. I'll keep that in mind. So much easier to say, I'll keep that in mind. A lot of times in my private practice, my clients will want to engage in conversation and call them out on, well, you always say that, but you never come through, and that's going to deplete your energy. We know who your sibling is. We know who they are. I can help, and people can help, professionals can help support you process your feelings, process the anger, process the disappointment, but you don't want to engage if it's going to be a losing battle for you. And even though you know that they're saying it, you know they're not going to step up, we know that. Let's plan for that. Let's prepare for that. But getting in an argument is going to deplete your energy. There's a time and a place for everything. And we have to conserve your energy at this point to do what's best for you and to protect you and to take care of you while we're taking care of your loved one living with dementia. And then let go of needing their approval to trust yourself. I see this frequently in my private practice, and I really work very hard to help caregivers really trust your siblings don't have to agree. Your siblings may not understand. Your siblings may dismiss it, discount it. They may be in denial, whatever it may be. You're the hands-on person. You're the one that knows better than anybody else. We will provide you with as much support as you need because family may not give it to you. Do not allow them to defeat you or to deplete your energy. You are the hands-on. You are the one that knows best, and you are the one we are going to support. So let's say you decide it's time to bring in home care. It's a huge issue, or move to a care community. Other family members will often say, I don't think that's necessary. And you need to remind yourself, I'm there every day. I see what's happening. I do know what's needed. And if other families not on board, then it doesn't dismiss what you know is best. And as I'm going through this presentation, keep in mind there are professionals that do family mediation. I do family counseling. There's always options. But if family is not willing, these are ways to take care of yourself, take care of the person that you're caring for so that dementia care is not done at the expense of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So what do we do when they don't show up? So, except that some family members won't engage, they just won't. Your brother keeps saying, let me know how I can help, but never follows through. So instead of waiting on them, instead of rearranging your schedule around them, accept that they may not be part of the care team. So I have several clients, one in particular, and his sister constantly says, oh, I'll spend the night with dad on such and such a night. So he cancels the caregiver, and guess what? Sister doesn't show up. So I said, we're done including your sister. If she shows up, great, but we're not calling the caregiver off because when we call the caregiver off, he has to get in his car and travel 4 hours to go and visit with his dad to make sure he stays overnight. So point being is, we're not going to build a care plan based on people who don't show up on a regular basis, based on people who are not consistent. If the sister shows up, great, then we can call the caregiver off. We've got an agreement with the home care agency, but he's not going to build his care plan around his sister who constantly says, I'll do this, and then doesn't show up. And then again, stop reorganizing your life around empty promises. Don't cancel the home aid because the sibling might not visit. So if they don't confirm, ask, this is again setting a boundary. It's about, okay, if you're going to be visiting with dad, please confirm. We don't get a confirmation, then we're going to have to take necessary measures to make sure that whatever shift or whatever that promise was, that we fill in the gap. So stick to the plan that works for you. And if we can have family members be part of that care plan, fantastic. But we're not going to build a care plan around family members who don't step up. And when I talk about boundaries, there's several different types of boundaries, by the way. There's task boundaries, there's time boundaries, there are emotional boundaries, there's physical boundaries. So when we talk about boundaries, there's many ways of setting those boundaries. And again, limit your reliance on those who don't follow through. If somebody frequently offers to handle errands and they don't do it, then we'll just stop assigning them time sensitive tasks. We can give them some other tasks to do that doesn't interfere with the caregiving. They want to bring over flowers, they want to bring over chocolate chip cookies, so be it. But we still have to design a care plan that takes care of you, protects you, supports you, and the person you're taking care of. And then build support from people who are willing. And often, I will say, often the family that supports you are people that are outside of your family. The family turns into friends, turns into community, faith-based services, professionals. A neighbor brings meal once a week, fantastic. Maybe a volunteer checks in regularly. This is the support you need. Treat it like it's gold because any amount of support you get is golden, and we can reach outside of family members to provide you with the care and the support that both you and your loved one need. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about fantasy family because this is a huge issue. And family, again, fantasy family is I want my family to be a certain way, and rightfully so. We all do. But the realities are they may not be the way we want them to be. But we also have to learn to accept who they are, and then we get to decide how do we utilize them, not the other way around. So we get to decide how we utilize them. You know, my sister's very good at this, my brother's very good at that. My other sister is good at this. How can I utilize what I know about them to create the support that I need? And then I also know what not to ask them because they're not going to come through. They aren't capable, whatever the reason. I have to build support around what I know to be true, not what I wish was true, not what I want to be true, but what I wish to be true. So, fantasy family is letting go of expectations of how I want them to be so that I can provide care in a way that's realistic, that I can count on and use the information that you know about family members to your advantage to empower you rather than deplete you. So I love doing this with families because I get to help separate. Okay, this is what's predictable about your family members. Now, if we're going to look at them, how are we going to utilize them? What way can we utilize them? And where are they not useful? Where are they not supportive? How do we let go of that so we can bring in the support that you do need? And it often will come from outside of the family. So the support may look like friends, neighbors, faith communities, support groups. I love support groups. Support groups aren't for everybody, but if you want to feel validated, you want to feel heard, you want to know what you're experiencing and feeling is normal, and you want support, support groups are fabulous. Professional caregivers might get it from a care manager, local respite services, professional therapists, counselors like myself. But anyone who shows up with consistency is going to be family. So these are all different ways to deal with family dynamics, but more importantly, some understanding about why family dynamics are the way they are. And then now, as the primary caregiver, how do we strategize? How do we put a plan in place that again is going to empower you, protect you, support you, and the loved one you're caring for. So, before I end this presentation, I would love for all of us to read. Oh, I'm sorry, the key takeaways. I jumped ahead. Key takeaways are family patterns are deeply ingrained and may not change. And that is no fault of your or of you, and it's no blame of you or them. They are who they are. And they learned a lot of their habits, a lot of ways they learn to cope is also a result of living in the same family and doing things differently. Communicate clearly and respectfully. Um, I'm a big proponent of being clear and being respectful. And in return, if you're not respectful towards me, I am going to set some boundaries that are going to protect me from what I will tolerate and what I will not tolerate. Let others know what you need without expecting approval. Boundaries can be hard and difficult to maintain, and I always caution my clients you're going to be tested and you're going to be tested and you're going to be tested. And the boundaries can fluctuate, but the more consistent we can be, then the more protective you will be of yourself. So protect your time, energy, and well-being by thinking about how you could set boundaries. And then delegate to those you can rely on and who are supportive. And then empower yourself again by letting go of depending on others who are inconsistent or unreliable. And please take time to reset, recharge, and refocus. And by all means, trust yourself and the decisions you make. And I really want to express that you deserve support, recognition, and relief. And you do not need more pressure, more guilt, or silence from other people who do not support you. So thank you, everybody who is a primary caregiver who is listening today, for the love and the care and the support that you do provide. You matter just as much as the person you're taking care of. Family dynamics will be what family dynamics are, and we can take care of you no matter what those family dynamics may be. So now, would you all on three read this quote with me out loud? So one, two, and three. It's by Rosalind Carter. There are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. And I'm going to now turn this over back to Sally.
Thanks so much. Um, if you need any guidance, if you need any help with family dynamics, or really anything else around dementia caregiving, Tami can help. You can make an appointment with her. You can sign up for her support group, and just reach out. As she has said so eloquently, you don't have to do this alone, and professional help is one of the ways you can support yourself. Advance the slide, please. So these are some of the times that you might need Tami services. Maybe you're burnt out, maybe you're stressed out, maybe your loved one has behavioral issues. Whatever that may be, Tami can help. And we did a drawing, and let's see. We drew Holly Fisher's name. You'll be receiving a signed copy of Tami's new book, and I will reach out to you. And for the rest of you, I'm just going to put that link into the chat. Here's the new book, and it covers a lot of what Tami talked about today. The Audible version is hopefully going to be out by the end of the year. Her first book, Essential Strategies for the Dementia Caregiver, is also really helpful. And on that, I wanted to go through some of the comments. We had a great discussion in the chat.
Okay.
Um, Carolyn says, we didn't seem to have any questions.
Okay.
Carolyn says, after 12 months of trying to do most things by myself, I started asking for help with simpler requests to family and friends, such as pick up a prescription, drop off a bill, pick up items, have them make a phone call, have them research information for your loved one that would be helpful, but that you don't have time to do.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yep. The more specific we can be, then the better our needs are most likely going to get met. When we're wishy-washy, but I think a big part of it, at least what I'll experience in my practice, is the guilt and trying to figure out, I should be able to do more. I should be able to do it all. And yet at the same time, I don't necessarily want to, or can I? And it's giving yourself that permission to accept your limitations to be what they are. You are human. We have limits, we have limitations. Honor them, honor your feelings, honor your limitations. Don't judge them, don't criticize them. Allow them to empower you to take as good care of yourself as you can.
Yeah, and Ethan said the topics described in this presentation um, were, other than the dementia of my mom, the toughest part of my experience, realizing that my fantasy family existed only in my head. My real family, the siblings I grew up with, were total strangers.
Yeah, and I deal with that day in and day out. And it is a reality, right? And we're not judging, we're not blaming, we're accepting. This is who they are. And we're not going to keep beating our head against the wall. What action do we need to take? Again, we may ask questions, we may see what they're willing to do, what they're comfortable doing, and also what they're not willing to do. Their behaviors and they're not coming through will speak volumes for us, right? What we get caught up in is getting so angry that they're not coming through. I have this kind of three. We'll try once, we'll try twice, but once we get to the third time, we're switching gears because I'm not going to continue to go down this road. But it's very challenging. And I think also for the caregiver, believe in yourself. You're doing a remarkable job. You are a gift to the person you're taking care of. You're a gift to the family and the people that aren't stepping up. But more importantly, you are the heart and soul of caregiving, and you deserve to be well taken care of, and you deserve to take care of yourself in a way that protects you emotionally, physically, and mentally.
And Ruth says, I took care of my mother in my home until I no longer could.
Mhm.
My middle sister takes care of her in the assisted living home, and my older sister takes care of all the financial issues. We use our strengths.
And that is lovely to hear because I wish, again, I had that magic wand and I wish I could go over every single family system and be able to do that magic wand and poof, everybody's going to work as a team. Everybody's going to support one another. And that would be one of my golden wishes is that if we could have that come true. So when I hear that, that's music to my ears. And I love when I get the families that do work really well together. And fortunately, I've had some beautiful families that I've worked with. A few of them are on here today. And it is just a joy to work with families where they work so well together. And it is also a joy and a blessing to help family caregivers who are struggling with the family dynamics to possibly put this in a way on how to deal with this in a way that doesn't kill them, really.
And then we have one final question before we wrap up. I think Felicia says, I think I am having the most trouble with mourning the loss of my loved one while
Mhm.
she is still living.
Yeah.
I am grieving someone who is very much alive but not mentally there. Do you have any recommendations on coping with that?
Yes, so that's called what we call ambiguous loss, and it's very normal. So ambiguous loss is we're losing the person while they're still alive. We're losing that person, and it's okay. I truly believe in order for us to accept what is, it's allowing ourselves to grieve the loss of what was but celebrate the loss of what was by hanging on to these beautiful memories. So it opens the door now for us to create new memories on a different level. But the term is ambiguous loss. So that will help normalize what you're feeling because there's a lot of literature out now on ambiguous loss. And know that your grief is is very valid, very legitimate, but let's embrace the grief, not be afraid of it, allow it to speak to us, nurture it, comfort it, and then it'll open the door for you to find other ways to embrace your loved one and create new memories. So we'll have the memories of the past and we'll have beautiful memories of the present as they progress with dementia.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. It's so great you were able to join us.
Yes, and it is the holiday season. I know the holiday season can have mixed feelings and emotions, but I would like to honestly wish all of you a beautiful and a wonderful holiday season. And again, thank you for everything you do, and you matter. Celebrate you this holiday season as well. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us.